Chapter 162. Kishir, left behind, slowly lifted his hand to his nose, burying it in the sleeve of his ceremonial suit. He still could distinctly smell the intense scent that had pervaded the area. Since his awakening and manifesting a second gender, Kishir had met numerous people to learn more about his newly transformed body. This was not the first time he had encountered the scent of an awakener that manifested Omega second gender at the same time as entered their mating period. However, he had never before felt the need for caution, nor found it to be strenuous. This time, however, the overwhelming pressure was so potent that he had to deliberately wrap himself in a cloak to prevent direct contact. He tried not to reveal his disquiet, but just the lingering scent on his sleeve evoked a burning sensation under his skin, as if he was repeatedly downing shots of potent liquor. It was just the initial manifestation, not even the onset of the mating period, and yet it was this powerful. He recalled the moment when he sensed, without even looking, at the presence of Keolda Diarca, who rushed into the hall with a strong scent and turned his head. At that time, for the first time since his awakening, Kishir felt the clarity of his existence as a man and as an alpha more than ever before. The stimulation was so overwhelming that it made the back of his neck tingle. The moment he took a breath, a part of the energy he had been successfully suppressing unknowingly leaked out. The average person would not have noticed, but a few awakeners froze in place with a faint look of shock, allowing Kishir to regain control over his power. Even though he didn't know who Keol's scent belonged to until he saw his face, as soon as he did, a certain face sprang to mind. Until normal circumstances, he would not have speculated about what might have happened to his usually competent assistant, but at that moment he had a strange certainty that it was due to him. That certainty was not a product of rational thought, but something closer to intuition. It was hard to believe that someone like Kishir, followed by Nathan Zuckerman for a long time, had acted on a hunch. Exhaling softly and lowering his arm, Kishir smoothed his clothes and tidied his hair. As he bathed in the cool air, the incomplete heat that had been itching within his body gradually subsided. However, the sight of the man crouching in the corner of the warehouse, his teeth clenched, his eyes filled with fear and confusion, had not yet faded from Kishir's mind. A strange expression mirrored in refusal, confusion, and indescribable despair. Black eyes that seemed to have sucked in all the darkness. The man was afraid, not of an enemy, but of an alpha awakener, of Kishir. What did the unexpected expression on the face of someone who had always moved so flawlessly and fearlessly mean? Although he had pretended not to notice and left him in peace after that, the feeling of something scratching at his nerves remained. Whether this sensation was part of his intuition as an alpha awakener or the result of worry for someone he cared about, he found it hard to distinguish. The refusal to accept sudden changes in the body during second gender manifestation is common. I experienced it myself, but that expression. Those with great power often feel an intense aversion and fear when they cannot control or govern themselves. This was not unusual. Many archmages and swordmasters whose names are inscribed in history have felt the same. and Kishir's past life, in a way, was nothing but a result of his efforts to overcome such emotions. So, Kishir thought that even an awakener with strong power like Yudhir could show a sense of denial due to a sudden second gender manifestation, but the despair he had shown was too heavy for that to be the case. For the last time, Kishir looked down at the sleeve of his ceremonial suit and stepped back into the hall. Most of the cavalry members and guests had left, but there were still a few guests in the hall. They were mainly people who wanted to look good in front of the crown prince and his faction. They whispered about the duke's return without his cloak, speculating that what he had been doing. Kishir, however, did not concern himself with their attitudes. He approached the empress, who sat on the dais looking weary, with a calm smile on his face. "It seems you're tired. Shall I order a peppermint tea with honey?" "No, that's fine. My head is a bit sore, but I don't want to drink anything more." Because she said this, Kishir quietly sat down beside her. Unlike the crowd that flocked to the side of the crown prince, no one approached the pair. The empress, who had been watching them, let out a soft sigh and lightly pressed her temples. "I wish they would leave at a reasonable time, but the crown prince is delaying time, saying it is hard to dissuade those who are worried about me. It seems we'll have to leave first, as he appears to have forgotten our dinner appointment tonight." "That is a wise decision. Not all waiting leads to good results." The empress glanced at Kishir's smiling face, who responded readily. "That's very fitting for a current situation. I have been waiting to leave with the duke, but if I had known he would come back without his cloak, I would have left alone." "Ah, that is, don't make excuses about finding a cute cat or puppy somewhere and bringing it to me. I will inform His Majesty." At the empress's stern voice, Kishir's mouth promptly closed. Instead, he smoothly changed the subject. "I have been gratefully drinking the tea you shared last time. The scent was much richer than last year. It's clear how much you enjoyed it." "Do you think saying that will get you off the hook?" Despite her words, the empress's expression softened a bit. Growing and drying herbs for the emperor's tea was her most rewarding hobby. "I have changed the blend and improved the species from the herbs I grew last year. It helps more with sleep and it's effective in boosting energy." "No wonder I have been sleeping well." As Kishir played along with Empress' words, he took a casual look around. By now, the servant he had sent should have delivered the letter to the crown prince's servant, and the news would be coming soon. Once he confirmed what Kishtian was planning after receiving the letter, he would be able to understand the emotions and determination with which he started this matter. "Your Highness." Sure enough, as if they had been waiting, Kishtian's servant appeared from the back and whispered something into his ear. The crown prince's expression changed, and he stood from his seat. "It seems he intends to handle this immediately." As Kishir casually watched him, Kishtian raised his voice and opened his mouth. "Is that really true?" "Yes." "What is the matter, Your Highness the Crown Prince?" The young scholar who had been loitering nearby called out, prompting Crown Prince Kishtian to turn his head. The prince's handsome eyebrows furrowed and he slumped back into his seat, his gaze shifting towards the empress who sat on the stage and the cashier beside her. Apparently, a cleaner just found this letter while cleaning the second-floor hall. They said it belonged to the deceased second prince of Apeto. The empress, startled by these words, widened her eyes. "A letter?" "Yes, But the content is the crown prince let his sentence trail off, prompting a response from the empress. What are you trying to say about the content? Send it over here. I apologize, Your Majesty. Here it is. The chamberlain brought the folded letter on behalf of Kashtian to the empress. A spot of blood, presumably from the poison Lenore, stained the outside, so the empress did not touch it herself, but instead instructed the chamberlain to read it out loud. Kishir, who already knew the contents of the letter which had passed through Yudhir's hand to him, then back to Kashtian, sat quietly by the empress' side, listening to the reading. I have deeply pondered over your majesty's words. I, Lenore Shan Apeto, though I am originally a man of Apeto, realized that time is not important in following the right path. You must have chosen me to grant this revelation. On the promised day, I will lay down at your feet and pledged my loyalty. The letter was quite brief, but the content was anything but ordinary. Everyone who had been holding their breath stirred all at once. Since the author himself mentioned his name, there was no doubt who wrote the letter. However, the problem was the title of the recipient. Lenore referred to the recipient only as Your Majesty in the letter. Of the attendees at the party that day, only Kashtian the Crown Prince and Kishir the Duke could be called Your Majesty, and among them, if one were to consider who had a deeper relationship with Lenore Shan Apeto, it was undeniably Kishir who exerted power to blockade his family. Lenore, a man of Apeto who wrote a letter pledging loyalty to Your Majesty for following the right path, escaped from his blockaded family mansion alone and came here. If he had come here at Kishir's call, the possibility that his death was not a simple coincidence was high. Would Duke Paleta have acted alone? Was it actually the Emperor's will that Lenore came here? Perhaps the culprit who attempted to poison the Crown Prince was not an outsider but someone involved in this incident. If this matter was truly the Emperor's will, it would be difficult to decide where to stand next. In an instant, a whirlpool of conspiracy theories spun in the minds of many. Amidst the numerous gazes directed to him, the Empress clenched the armrest of her chair with a pale face. Duke. It seems unlikely that the meal the Emperor wished for today will be possible. However, trapped under numerous gazes, Kishir only looked down on everyone with an inscrutable smile.